doesn't make in order, but that's, oh, you're right, okay. John the Baptist, he didn't even enter my mind. Okay, Malachi chapter 3. What we're going to be talking about now is our tithe. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm talking about your money. I'm talking about giving God a tenth. I remember saying this, and I don't know that I was talking to Joe coming. I've never had trouble with the tithe. When I first got saved, I'm thinking, I've said this, and I'm thinking, but I told Joe, I said, I don't know that this is true because I told you 50 years has passed. But I remember talking to my pastor when I first was going to church, and I think it happened before I got saved. I'd see the offering plate go by. So I asked if I could give, and you know how Baptists are. They said yes. But I've never had trouble with the tithe. That's always, that's just I learned to give early on, and it's the Lord. But now in my while I was in Australia, a friend of mine made this statement: the tithe is a good place to start. But if you've been saved for 10, 15, 20 years, then the Bible tells us in 2 Peter chapter 3 that we're to grow in grace and the knowledge of the Lord Jesus. And if you go to 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9, it tells us that giving is a grace. So if I'm growing in grace, I'll grow in my giving. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the tithe is a good place to see. Look, the Lord's give us so much, and so here in Malachi, look at verse 7. It said in verse 7, "Even from the days of your fathers, you are gone away from mine ordinances, and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. But you said, wherein shall we return? Will man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes unto the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house, and prove me herewith, saith the Lord. And I will open unto you the windows of heaven, and pour you out blessings that shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sake, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Neither shall your vine cast her fruits before the time in the field, and the Lord, saith the Lord of hosts. And the nations shall call you blessed, and ye shall be delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts." Now, the reason I was asking that question about if Malachi was the last Old Testament, and I should have got a little bit more pointed, but from Malachi until John the Baptist, we have 400 years of silence. Now, that's the reason I wanted to know if Malachi was the last book. The indictments that God brings against the children of Israel are pretty strong. And here he's talking about their giving. But I want you to look. Let's see. Let me find it. He says, look at verse 10. He says, "Bring all the tithes to the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house, and prove me that now here saith the Lord of hosts. And I will open the windows of heaven, and pour out you blessings that shall not be room enough to receive it." Now look, he said, if you bring it and prove me. In other words, God said, if you bring me, I'll prove it to you that He said, you bring, I'll prove. In the Old Testament, we find a lot of where God says, if you will, I will. See, here's the thing. Now, I realize that Malachi is written to the nation of Israel. But principles are not timelined. You take principle, these are principles that God's given the children of Israel, and I believe they're principles that you and I can apply to our own lives, and I believe that God will bless us for it. And I want you to notice how that God starts off Malachi. Look at go back to chapter 1, verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel is by Malachi. I have loved you, saith the Lord. Now look at their response. And they say, and ye say, yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Man. See, here's the thing about it. A lot of times we get caught up with the blessings and we forget about the blesser. And I want to lay this right down beginning. Here, if God never does anything else for me in my life, He's abundantly blessed me since I've been a believer. But He didn't have to do that, because what He did for me the day that I received what Christ did on Calvary was enough. All the others' grace was enough. I was a sinner, lost, on my way to hell. And He picked me up out of the muck and the mire and clay of this world and established my goings and give me a route. So why would I want any more? But I'm not saying that you go through troubles and time. Now look, here's the thing about it. Malachi means my messenger. And the thing, and see here what it starts out with in chapter 1, God tells them how much He loves them. What's the first verse that we learn as a believer? For God so loved the whole world that gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That's enough, folks. That's enough. If I struggle the rest of my life, it's enough. I don't have to go to hell. I got a home in heaven. You know? But I'm going to tell you, let me start to tell you this. God's been more, and given me more than I could ever desire. He's been good to me. He's been good to me. See, here's the thing about it here. When we first talk to people about the Lord Jesus Christ, what's the first thing we talk about? We talk about His love. How much He loved us the day that Christ died on Calvary and gave Himself for us. That's where it all begins. Man, if He loves me, see, here's the thing that I realized when I started tithing in an early age, or in my Christian walk, was that if I give myself to Him, then He owns everything that I have and everything that I've got. You know, I found out it wasn't my money that He wanted, it was me. And if He's got me, He's got my money. It's not about, look, here's the thing about it. I want to lay this out right here. It's not about us. It's about Him. It's about Him. Hey, when we come to John 3, he said, look, we should, I like what a friend of mine said, Brother McClure said, he said, never doubt in the dark what God's promised in the light. We forget, we get caught up in our lives and we forget what God's done for us. But next time you do that, just read John 3:16 like this. For God so loved Charles Kern that He gave His only begotten Son, that if Charles Kern would believe in Him, then Charles Kern would not perish but have everlasting life. What more can I ask? What more can I ask? What more can you ask? But see, here's the thing about it. What they said to Him, that just astounds me. They said, wherein have you loved us? Man, I look back on my life and I look at the nation of Israel. You know, I believe this book by faith. But there is something tangible that I can believe that God's done in my lifetime, that I can say that this book is true. The nation of Israel and how He's drawn them back in 1948. They became a nation again. No other, I've used this, no other nation in the world has ever lost their boundaries and come back. And they're just going back. They didn't have a place they didn't have a government, they didn't have anything. Look at let's go back over to chapter 1. God's asking them this. Look at verse 6. He said, a son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is my honor? And if I be a master, wherein is my fear? And saith the Lord of hosts unto you, and the old priest, that you despise my name, and ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? See, here's the thing about it. God, this is, they're mocking God. They're telling God wherein. And say a lot of times we don't do it with our words, but we do it with our actions. And look, I'm not up here throwing rocks at anybody. I know me. I like what a friend of mine, he said, look at me. I'm made out of the same stuff you are. But see, we do it. He said in Malachi verse 2 and verse 17, you weary me. You have wearied me, the Lord, with your words, you say, and wherein have we wearied thee? And when we say, everyone that doeth evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and he delighteth in him, where is God? Where is the God of judgment? See, here's the thing about it. They've gone astray. They've talked about it. And then God starts talking about here in chapter 3 about what he's doing. And he's telling them the indictment against them. In Paul, in 2 Timothy chapter 3, he writes this, verse 1 through 4. And he's writing to Timothy, and he says, this also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers and false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. And then in verse 5 he says, you have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof. That's what he's telling us. We live in a world like that. See, we're having a form. We're going through a form. You see, and he's talking to them, and he's talking to them about these things and how look what he says now. He's talking to them about the things in 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14. He says this, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked way, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins, and I will heal their lands. Now, we get caught up in a lot of things. If we put God first and if we put Christ first, then everything else will fall in place. I said this when I talked last week. The problem with Washington is not the laws, but the problem of Washington is the heart of the people. We get caught up in good causes. For example, we talk about the all that's going on television. We've done that for years and years, yet we still watch it. And then there's people spend a lot of money trying to fight that. We talk about the public education and what's going on in that. We talk, there's things about all the agendas that are out there, and we spend a lot of time fighting that. But he said the problem. He said, if my people, we can't straighten the world out. You can't straighten the world. The only way you can straighten the world out is the way they straightened me out on January the 31st, 1971. Receive Christ. That's the only, it's a heart problem. We can't change that. See, here's the thing. We're looking for God to work in it. We're wanting to change people politically. We can't. We're wanting to change people in society. We can't. But if we'll approach them one at a time, and I believe this with all my heart, if we'll propagate the gospel and help, that will change people. See, and that's what I'm talking about this morning, that if we get right, if God's, I'm going to tell you what, it's my responsibility to help with this church. I'm a member here. This is my home. My pastor keeps telling me this is my church home. Who pays for the lights at my house? I do. Who pays the water bill at my house? I do. Who pays the mortgage at my house? We don't have one. Who pays taxes at my? I do. If this is my church home, whose responsibility is it to pay it? It's mine. It's my part. That's why if I believe that in every congregation, if everybody will do right, you say, well, I don't have it. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. We didn't have it when I started tithing. I didn't know nothing about it. Now then, I want to close out. I got three things I want to bring you. Then I want you to look at some promises. Look what he says. Look at verse 7. Or let's see. Let me drop down. Let me find it. He said in verse 10, bring the tithes to the storehouse that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out you the blessings here, that shall not be room enough to receive it. Now what he's saying is, you bring it and I'll prove to you that I'll take care of you. It's my responsibility to bring it. It's important. Here's the thing about it. When I get, and I'm going to throw this in, I believe that he said, I know they'd say it's Old Testament, he said, but you bring the first fruits. I believe by that he means that I take my tithe off the top. I don't wait and let Uncle Sam get his. Uncle Sam comes after God. Because I'm not going to have to face Uncle Sam. I'm going to have to face the Lord. He comes off the top. And here's the thing about it. If he doesn't bless me because I tithe, that's okay. But here he said, you bring it and I'll prove it to you that I'll take care of you. I'll open the storehouse. He said that there will be meat in my house. In other words, when there's people in the church, there comes time that every one of us need help. It's the church's responsibility. I'm family. If my child comes to me needing help, I'm going to help him. If Nathan comes to you and needs help, are you going to turn him away or are you going to help him? No matter where he's at in the road of life, you're going to help him. I'm going to help my kids. I've already done it. I'm just glad and here's the thing about it. I've learned this. I never loan my kids anything. I give it to them. I give it to them. You know why? Then I don't look for it back. Okay? But here's that there will be meat in my house. Here's the thing about it. God, we're to take care of everything that goes on here in the house. This is my home. This is where I meet. This is my family. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've met family all around the world. I've been privileged to travel. But this is where I live. This is where I come to get fed on a regular basis. So I need to get, but here's the thing. One day I may need help. We need to take care of the lights here. We need to take care of the water here. If I need help someday, then I'm assuming that they'll help. If they don't, that's okay. But if I'm to be here to help and with the needs of everybody in our family. But that there be meat in my house. But then he said, look what he said. He said, that I will open unto you and pour out the windows of heaven, pour out blessings that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Now, I've never been where the blessings, I hear some of these pastors, they talk about, in my mind, astronomical amounts of money that God gives them to move on. And I'm glad, to build and do, and I'm glad that he does that. But God's never done me that way. But he's always provided everything that I need. I was in the shower this morning. And I was thinking on this, of the blessings that I've received in my ministry. I'm thankful that my boss came. I'm thankful that my boss came to our church, and I was able to make that one trip to Alaska. I thought that would be it. But I've been able to travel a little bit. I've been able, and here's the thing about it. You say, well, you're helping them missionaries. I walk away with a whole lot more than I went with. We helped a pastor, I can't remember, I think his name was last name was Smith, in Centralia, Illinois. I can tell you what's in Centralia, Illinois. Corn, corn, corn. There's nothing there but corn. He's got a little old church that's been there since the 1800s. The building was 18. We helped him work on it. I wasn't even in the conversation. I was just in the peripheral of it. And when the wife was talking to Mike, and she said, you know what thrilled my heart more than anything? When y'all pulled up in our yard and the excitement my husband got, knowing that y'all were coming to help him. I mean, that blessed my soul, not because I got to work on his church, but to know that we were helping somebody that needed help. See, here's the thing about it. He said, I'll open blessings. I've been able to experience that around. There was a young black preacher that Mike got acquainted with. His name was Charles Hamilton. And he was from Greenville, Mississippi. And we went down there, and he had this storefront that he wanted to open. And now you're talking about awful. You're talking about awful. Hey, people, and I don't mean to be gross, but people had defecated in it. It was abandoned. And we went in there and we kind of partitioned it off in a little bit. And I'm gonna tell you, I'll tell you where Charles Hamilton is on his book. He named his church King James Bible Baptist Church. And now he's out of that building. He's growing out. And now this was 4, 5, 6 or 7 years ago that we were down there. But to have a little part of that. And then look what God says. He said in verse 6, he said, let's see. Look at verse 11. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, and neither shall your vine cast forth the fruit before the time of the field, and the Lord of hosts. Here's the thing about it. The Bible tells us in 2 Peter that he is a roaring lion going forth seeking whom he may devour. And the Lord here says, I will rebuke him. And I'm going to tell you something. You say, well, you know, he ain't bothering me. You ain't going into his territory. If we're trying to get people saved, we're infringing on his territory, and he ain't going to like it. You can put that in your pipe and smoke it. He's going to come. You wonder why our pastor gets attacked. He's preaching the gospel. He's preaching the gospel. You know, if I'm having troubles, that means, hey, if I'm having troubles, that means I look at Paul's life, and I look at Peter's life, and I look at people in the New Testament there in the book of Acts. Hey, when they infringed on our adversary's territory, he caused problems. Look for it. But hey, here's the thing, the blessed. If I go and help, that's the reason I've enjoyed going on mission trips. I don't do it for myself. Well, I guess I do. And I don't say this to build myself on going. I don't have any skill. But I found out that somebody can pick up the trash, somebody can keep the guy that knows what he's doing busy, and we can get a job done in a few days if everybody will do their thing. You don't have to have a skill to learn and to serve God. You can do it in many, many ways. But if we walk away and we've taken a little bit off that pastor for a little bit of time, that he might infringe upon our adversaries, the devil's territory, I'm all for it. and I'll give to it. I hesitate to say this because I don't want to brag on myself. But Joe and I have been privileged to be part of a few missionaries' ministry for years. How does that happen? We're not wealthy. We don't have a lot. We live within our means. But it seems like we give it out, it comes in. I'm going to tell you something. You need to get involved personally with missionaries, with your finances and with your prayers. You don't know how it'll bless you. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I want to share this with you. I thought about this. It's kind of funny. When we went to Australia, we went under-supported. We really did not have enough money to stay. But I was on a deputation for a long, long time. And so I thought it was time. Now, what I'm about to tell you, I'm not saying that God did this for me, but I'm telling you how God takes care of us. The missionary that I was there, that helped get me in, when he first went out, it cost him $1.39 to buy one Australian. Can you imagine? That's 40% that you're losing the day you get in Australia. Now I'm out there, I'm already under-supported. But Australia, for some reason, and I'm not saying it was because of me, floated their dollar against the American dollar. Okay? So the first time that I bought, I paid 99 cents American for one Australian. And it got even better. While we were there, at times we would get 10, 12%. But we got as high as 25%. And you say, why did that happen? I say, because God blessed what we were trying to do. I'm not saying Australia floated their dollar because Charlie was over there and he said, I'll look down. But I'll tell you what, for whatever reason they floated it, my family and the work that I was trying to do benefited from it. And I give the Lord credit for it. See, here's the thing about it. It's not always, God, when we tithe and when we give, He's not always talking about our money. He's talking about our talents, our abilities. And I'm going to tell you what, if we're faithful with that, giving it to Him on a daily basis. I look at this, what we're going through now. I'm asking God to raise a man. We need a man. I'm talking about a man of God that's getting up preaching the book of God, and God's got His hand on him, and He's got the power of God on him that he can shake this nation. I'm not asking God to change Washington. I'm asking God to change men. But we got to be faithful in every area. He said, if my people, which are called by my name, He was telling them, he promised them all, and then He said, He told Israel, He said, and all nations shall call you blessed. I don't know how much more time I've got. I talk about it a lot. I'm prepared. I don't say that I'm ready. But when my time comes, here's what I want to be said about me. Not that I was able to give a lot. Not that I did a lot. But when you pass by, you look at me and say, he was faithful. he was a good man. If I've received that, and when I stand before my Lord, he'll say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. That's all I need. Father, we thank you for the privilege of giving to you everything that we have. You told us in Romans chapter 12 that we should present our bodies living sacrifices. Lord, you told us in 2 Corinthians that we're no longer our own, but we've been bought with a price. Oh, what a high price. Can we not give what we have back? In his name, amen.